Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb. This is the first book in a space opera sci-fi duology, and this follows a band of female characters who are trying to take down an evil empire. Our two main characters are Chloe and Eris. Chloe is a mechanic and was raised in like a poor area of society, and Eris is now part of the revolution but used to be a part of the empire, and they have some like history between them of like distrust and things that have happened on previous missions. Then we have three other characters that come in a little bit into the story and we start getting their perspectives as well, and they also join the rebellion and everything that's going on. So at the beginning of the story, Chloe and Eris get sent on a mission. Things don't go according to plan. Some things are discovered about the Empire's plans as well. They run into these new characters and everything goes from there. So this was one of my most anticipated books of the year. I ended up buddy reading this with my friend Sarah Jane of The Book Life, and this cover and just like the vibe of it made me think Mass Effect. So I know that that was already setting this book up with high expectations. So first off, let me talk about the world building. Like I said, this is a science fiction duology, and what's kind of cool about this world is it's sci-fi, but there are a pantheon of gods that this world has that is referenced a lot, especially the god of death, and you guys know how I feel about the god of death. However, I don't feel like that part was utilized enough. I feel like there was almost intended to be like a blending of like that fantasy sci-fi Star Wars type vibe, kind of with like that god element, but only the one god is ever mentioned. Nothing much about that god is mentioned, just besides it's like we worship a god of death and like that's it. There's no clue as if that god's like real or just symbolism, and none of the other gods are like really talked about. Their names are mentioned a few times when talking about the whole pantheon, but those gods aren't really talked about. So like this world is just not as fleshed out as I wanted it to be. I find it very hard to envision beyond just your basic sci-fi world with like ships and blasters and things like that. This empire is a conquering empire, so there is talk of different alien societies that have been taken over by it, and that this is a future from like our world is one of the old worlds, like very, very far distant future, but it's still like, I don't know about these other alien societies besides one that's mentioned very, very briefly as like their main enemy. I don't understand a lot of what's going on. Not that I don't understand, it's not told to us. So when I hear space opera, I expect a certain amount of world building that I just felt like I didn't get. Next, I'm gonna talk about our characters. Our characters took me a while to connect to. I just didn't find myself really caring. It wasn't that I hated them, it wasn't that they annoyed me, I just was not connecting to them. It wasn't like a relatability issue because I don't need that for my characters, like I just wasn't interested. We had your typical setup of a multiple POV story where we had some like flashbacks to how the characters got here and their past and what's bringing them here and the trauma and everything they went through. And in the other stories that I've read like that, I love that. When a crew gets formed and you kind of hear about their past, love that shit. I did not care here at all. Especially about like our two main focus characters, Chloe and Eris. I don't care really a lot about some of their past stuff. Like some of their stuff was hinted at, people that they'd lost and all that. I just didn't really care. I also didn't believe some of the motivations, and you know, they're told about like some of these people that used to be important to them, but you don't get to even really see that relationship, so it doesn't really have the impact. I did like some of the other characters a little bit more, and I did start pulling for like the whole crew towards the very, very end, but it was like the last 10 to 20% of the book that I started to really be like pulling for them and like caring what happened and wanting to keep reading. Otherwise I was like, I could take it or leave it. As far as characters, there is a variety of representation in here. There's a female-female romance. There's a trans woman character who is in a position of power in the rebellion, but she is very briefly mentioned, so she's not like a main focus of the story. And then there is some disability rep because Chloe is an amputee. However, with the female-female romance, although I love to see ladies loving ladies, in this book I kind of felt like there didn't need to be a relationship, like at all. Like, I'm straight, queer, nothing. Like there just didn't need to be a relationship. I feel like it just took away from the story. Just because the relationship didn't have enough time to grow, there were so many different perspectives that we're following, not just the characters that were in the relationship, and I think it would have been better if it maybe would have taken a little bit longer. Like the characters that are attracted to each other, like it makes sense that they are, but it just was like, I can't care about this with the other things that are going on. So it just felt like that could have been taken out, or even could have just been like a really deep friendship. I think I would have cared more, as I'm talking about this, I'm like, I think I would have cared more if there was a lot more of a focus on the friendships of this crew and how they become like a fully formed, close-knit unit, which we didn't really get to see at all. And when we have a crew together, I want them to be close to each other, even if some of them don't get along. Like, I want there to be that, like, bond, and I just didn't feel that. So I think part of me was kind of angry that we had this, like, romance, when I'm like, I just want all the women to be friends, and, like, or at least, you know, like, teammates. Like, I want to feel that bond, and I wasn't. Lastly, I'm gonna talk about the plot. As far as the plot, again, kind of like I was saying with, like, the flashbacks and stuff, I felt like it wasn't necessarily slow, but, like, I just didn't care for a lot of the story. I felt like it really started to speed up at the end and be more intense, and I was really pulled in, but before that, I just didn't find myself caring a ton. Is this a series that I plan on continuing? I will probably read the last book, because it's a duology, and I can finish it up, and the end was, like, kind of intriguing, and I want to see some of the things that they're gonna do there, but I could also see myself just, like, losing interest by the time the second book rolls around, and not reading it too. So we'll see. While I feel like this review was full of, like, some complaints and stuff, honestly, I just felt kind of like middle of the road about this book. So it wasn't bad. Oh, it wasn't like a hate read. It just wasn't something that I feel like is going to stick with me for very long. And I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. So comment below and let me know what you thought of Seven Devils. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.